All right, we do need to get into some of the pre-show notes. So why don't we start with, let's start with Ayla. Let's see, sorry, one sec. There's so much. So Ayla, you were homeschooled from birth to the end of high school. Your parents were evangelical fundamentalist Christians in Idaho. Mm-hmm. Is this like Westboro Baptist or no?
Oh, we thought they were cool, but we were not Westboro.
But like kind of similar?
Yeah, I would say there's a spectrum from like normal Christian to Westboro. We were like probably 70%.
Close to the Westboro, okay.
We were Calvinist.
Calvinist, okay. You said after leaving home, losing your faith and failing to attend college, you turned to a series of shitty jobs involving like a factory work, waking up 4 a.m. You escaped from that into the warm, wet embrace of adult content, which you used to fund dives into faraway realms, both physical and psychedelic. You did a documentary or two. You spent a year somehow getting addicted to LSD, and you did become one of the top OnlyFans creators until your attention span ran out. I believe that was the bio on your website.
Yes.
And you've done escorting. We talked about the shower thing. We don't need to touch on that. And you've been involved in sex work since, you said 2017, was it? Or
since I was 20.
Since you were 20, yeah. Okay, gotcha. And your dad was super conservative.
Yes, professionally so.
And I watched most of your interview with Lex Friedman. It was really interesting. You said you grew up in a very patriarchal, I guess, household.
Yeah.
Where, and to quote you, you said women were subordinate to men in regards to making decisions when married. And so I was curious on this. It sounds like you kind of disagree with this sort of sentiment. I guess maybe a jumping off point, and we can get into more broad general conversations related to that. Does anybody kind of agree with her when it comes to like, should women be subordinate to men when married?
Ask Kanye West. Didn't he just show us that's like being subordinate, right?
What?
His naked wife on the Grammy red carpet, she submitted to him to do that.
Allegedly, that's her idea. Like she really enjoys being naked, from what I hear.
Pre Kanye West, there was not a lot that was stopping that woman from taking her clothes off for anybody who she could take them off for a camera. So just pointing that out.
I think subordinate's an interesting word. I do believe that men should be the leader in most situations and relationships. But when I look at marriage specifically, it's I hate the word partner because it's like so co-opted, but you're supposed to be complementary to each other, right? Like we bring out the best and we demand the best out of each other. So I think women are a really good soundboard for men, and like the best relationships, they take advice from each other. But I do think that there needs to be a leader in the relationship, and it typically should be the man.
Does anybody agree with that?
I agree with that.
Or do you guys think?
I don't know what the S word means.
Subordinate?
Yeah.
Submissive, basically coming underneath,
like
deferring
deference,
would be.
I guess you could say. But does anybody here?
Yeah, just subordination would be an underling. So, like if you're at you go to work, right? You got a boss. Mm-hmm. He's the boss. You're the subordinate.
Mm.
Thank you.
So, who agrees with Candace? Like, should the man be the leader, or do you guys view things more 50-50?
Well, my boyfriend.
Here, why don't we just go around the table? Okay, we'll start with you. What do you think?
So, I think it depends on the relationship. I think that some women can lead well and some men can. I remember last time I was saying that in my own relationship, I like it to be traditional, but I support other women, having the choice to be in a complementarian relationship or an egalitarian relationship. And I think the live chat, because they can't see it now, but last time I was here on the live chat, they kept saying that I wanted the good parts of feminism for myself, and I was trying to promote the bad, quote-unquote, bad parts to the rest of the female population. But that's not the case. It's just like how I have respect for people who are of a different religion than me, then that doesn't mean that I'm contradicting myself. I respect their right to make that choice to believe in what they do.
What's the nature of your relationship?
Well, I'm kind of like stay at home, and he is the breadwinner.
Sure. Going around the table, what about you?
I also think that when I think of a man, I think of someone masculine that kind of takes care of you, in a sense, more traditional.
I definitely am a little more outspoken, so if we can banter back and forth and do things like that and have a say in what we're doing together, it's better. But for the most part, I think that a man should lead and be more masculine and just take care of you.
Sure. What about you?
It's a tricky question. I think it's all circumstantial, and every individual relationships are different. And
How do you want your relationship to be?
My relationship, I'm here on this podcast, and my boyfriend was not down. So, like, but also, like, I paid for it all myself. So unless, like, you know, he was paying all the bills and stuff, maybe, like, I would consider not coming onto the podcast. But since it's 50-50, then, like, I can kind of do what I want.
Okay. What about you, Carly?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the maturity levels of each partner. But personally, I think that everybody kind of has to have their own independence within a relationship, like, just in terms of, like, everyone has their responsibilities and, like, but it really does just depend on the relationship and, like, how each person is.
Once we go around, I'm going to ask, like, a really specific question. I think that will kind of get to the heart of the issue. What about you, though?
Yes, I agree, except again, there's so many caveats because there's all this pressure on men to, be the leader, but men don't even know themselves. So you're asking them to do something they don't know how to do and they haven't been taught to do. So this is why we get into all of the mix of the problems of what you see in a relationship. If the woman doesn't want to follow the lead because the lead doesn't know how to lead, and then she can't trust the lead, and then it's a shit.
Sure. Lily?
I think it's really circumstantial, but in my personal relationship, I would like a 50-50.
50-50. Carly, it looked like you want to jump in really quick, or?
I was just saying that, like, I, like, totally agree with that.
Agree with it. Got it. I think you already kind of talked about it. Ayla, I guess your position on this topic, if you want to elaborate a bit.
I just don't know what should means. Like, should for what purpose?
What do you mean?
Like, should you jump up and down? And I'm like, well, should you do that in order to achieve what goal? Like, shoulds are a contingent.
He doesn't, like, you know, like, mean should is like an ought. He's talking in the comments. So when you're talking about, like, should, and you're doing the little, like, autistic Hetzberg thing, I know exactly what you're doing. It's a very low tier form of philosophy. He's saying should in the comments. He's not saying should as an ought statement of a moral imperative.
What is a slightly higher tier of philosophy that you would recommend I try?
Well, I would start with understanding that you're not in a philosophical engagement at the moment, unless you see everything purely as a philosophical engagement, and that you would have to agree with me, you distinguish between words in the commons, and you distinguish between words which have philosophical terms. So if somebody's engaging with you, for instance, a medical doctor or a lawyer, they're going to use legal terms or medical terms. They're going to have a different meaning than the common terms of those words or the philosophical terms. So when you say, I don't know what should means, I actually don't believe you in this context. I think you know exactly what he means by should.
This is the way that I talk all the time, and sort of the question that I would ask anytime somebody asks me if somebody should do anything.
Yeah, and I just explained to you that there's a distinction here.
I still don't understand what should means in this context. So
what does should mean in any context?
Well, it's usually dependent on something, right?
Okay.
Like, should I go to the store? I'm like, well, if you're hungry.
So dependent on this context, what do you think should means?
Like, my guess is probably there's some implicit, like, to be happy kind of thing, but I don't know if this is true.
Well, then we'll go with that.
I would like to check, though. Like, is that what we mean? Because if so, then I can answer.
Yeah, so can you even repeat what the question was?
But it's also different because sometimes people argue the purpose of, like, some types of social structures is not to be happy, but rather to have, like, a flourishing society or something.
Yeah,
which
like,
is,
I'm fine getting into semantics with you when it comes to should, but can you repeat what the question even was?
Should men lead their wives, or some variation on that?
Yeah, so he's asking from your worldview, whatever that is. I believe you say that you're a rationalist, so from whatever your rational worldview is, the should sense here is ought they or ought they not lead wives?
For what purpose? I can't get over the what purpose. Like, for happiness, I think probably a lot of people would be happier if their husbands led them. This seems true.
Okay.
I don't think I would be that much happier, but I am not normal.
Okay, so then should they or should they not? Ought they or ought they not? For the purpose of happiness.
You sound very confident in the things that you say, but I'm not sure it makes you more right.
It doesn't make you more right because you don't understand the things I say either. So I would just like an answer when you're talking about ought or ought not. Ought they or ought they not for the purpose of happiness?
I can't answer. I mean, maybe I'm very stupid, and maybe you could explain this to me. But you're saying ought is a common use.
I'll use really small words.
Yeah, we can use very small baby words for me, because my small little brain has difficulty sometimes. But when you're saying ought they lead their wives, do you mean that there's like a general sort of way that the world is good if it is and bad if it isn't, and you're referring to like a general sense of goodness?
No, I'm not inferring or making an implication for anything. This is an askance from the worldview of you, who is not me. Whatever your worldview is, who is not me, from your worldview that is not mine, ought men lead their wives?
I'm trying to communicate my view, and my view is something like, I think that some people would be happier if their husbands led them, and some people would be sadder if their husbands led them. I'm not sure that there's such a thing as an overarching goodness, so I don't really...
Got it. Okay, so sometimes. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying.
Well, that was an interesting exchange. I do have a question related to this, though, to, again, perhaps get to the heart of the issue. Who gets final say? So in a relationship or a marriage, whatever, let's say there's some sort of impasse. There is no resolution. You can't come, you want one thing, he wants the other. Who should get final say?
Whoever pays.
Hold on. So, and I think, Andrew, sometimes you refer to this as a threshold breaker, I think, but who do you think gets final say? Or would you, I guess, either in your own dynamics, who should get final say? What do you think? Starting with you, Ayla.
It depends on the thing. I'm confused.
Sure.
Like, if you're disagreeing over, like, where should we move?
Sure.
I don't know, probably you should bet on it, or, like, see who would want to pay more given that you had the money. Or make prediction markets to figure out. I don't know. I don't think I operate by these norms, but I know a lot of people do.
Sure. What do you think?
I think it's going to depend on the situation. Obviously, you have to respect the person that you're with. So to do something that is going to damage the relationship or blatantly disrespect the other person's not going to end up, you're not going to end up with a thriving relationship. But it's like nothing's without consequence at the same time. So it's trusting your gut. Like, if you trust your husband fully and he's like, this is a terrible idea, maybe consider the option that you're wrong and that he's right, and vice versa. So if you're telling him not to do something, and this happens a lot, if you talk to anyone in business, the wife will be like, that person had a really sketchy feeling, I don't think that this investment is good. The dude ignores the woman's intuition and the thing just like crumbles, right? So it's looking at the history of the relationship too. It's like, how often has he been right about this thing and you've been wrong, and vice versa.
Andrew, if I have you jump in really quick, do you want to provide like maybe a good example of like a impasse sort of situation that could arise in like a relationship or marriage, just for use as an example here?
Well, I mean, a very common one is just money. So the idea of how money is used or spent in a relationship versus not spent in a relationship is one of the number one disagreements that men and women have. So the idea is, if you can't come to an agreement on how money is spent or what school the kid should go to, which might infer spending money as well, right? Ultimately, there's only two of you, right? So either a third party has to break this threshold barrier, or one of you ultimately has to be the decider. Otherwise, how do you essentially come to an agreement if both of you disagree? Like, how is that done if one person ultimately doesn't end up with the final say?
I don't think one person holds that position permanently. So, and then it's also going to be who acts on it first. So typically women are the ones that set all of the appointments, pay the school tuition if they're going to a private school, set up the doctor's appointments. They make 60 to 80% of all of the household purchases. So if you're just looking at behavior, you'd say women are, but that could be the man saying no and they're just making that decision anyways. So
I'm not really sure that any of that would matter, though. So I understand
well,
what
it's
you're saying.
what's being acted on right now, right? So like whether or not that's right or that's helpful for a healthy relationship, like that's a whole different conversation. But what is happening is women are.
I'm not sure it's actually pertinent to what I'm saying, though. So I understand what your position is. You're saying, hey, look, women already have lots of household responsibilities, and so they're in a decision-making role already. We're not really discussing that, though.
No, I'm saying that they're actually executing the decision already.
Yeah, well, but they're executing the decision at the behest of the husband, though. That right? So this is the consent of the husband essentially is going into this decision-making meeting. She's doing the day-to-day activities because he's saying you should do these day-to-day activities, right? He doesn't have any disagreement with that. It's when there's disagreement within that, who becomes the arbiter then? How do we find this threshold breaker between two people for who makes the determination or who has the ultimate say?
Again, I don't think anyone holds that permanently, so it's trusting your partner. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, well, okay. If they don't hold it permanently, right, but let's say the man considers himself to be in the position of authority and has been in the position of authority, right, this still doesn't really get to the heart of the question of if there's a disagreement and they can't reconcile it. You say, well, the man doesn't hold that permanently. It's like, okay, great. But what I'm saying is when you can't reconcile the disagreement, you both disagree, who gets to ultimately make the decision? Whether you think that it's a permanent basis for a man to be in control of it or not, I'm not even sure that's relevant, really.
Well, because the question seems that it's permanent, so maybe I'm misunderstanding it. But if you're saying who's in charge and who is responsible for the deal breaker, that sounds like who is always responsible for the deal breaker.
No, not really.
Okay.
So what the question is asking is if two people, since most relationships anyway are two people. I understand that there's polyamorous people here and this type of thing, but that's outside of what you would consider the norm for society. It's usually man, woman, that's it, right? And people generally tend to not like to share their partners. You can dispute why that is, sexual liberation, whatever, but it is a fact that most people are in monogamous relationships, one man, one woman, most. That's globally, that's not even just in the West. So if that is the case, and you have a disagreement, can't reconcile it, right? How do you figure out who ultimately is going to have the say?
I don't know. I mean, I've been in a relationship for 15 years and that's never happened. There's never been a decision that there was an impasse. And if there was anything that was even close to that, we tabled it until there was a mutual decision.
Yeah, but the problem is like, what if it's not a mutual decision? It's like, no, I'm not backing down on this.
Well, then how well do they really communicate?
Right?
How well do they really communicate? Because the reality is if you care about the person, especially you're talking about specifically a marriage, the whole goal of conversations where you disagree is to let the other person feel heard, understood, and respected. And if both people are receiving that and there's safety involved, you're going to be able, maybe not that moment, maybe not that day, to come to a conclusion that feels really good to the both of you, where it doesn't have to be, it's my say-so because I say so and I'm the lead. And I think that's where the ego gets in there and it can go wildly wrong. Whereas a man who, if we're going back to the man as leading, and a man in his like healthy masculinity, it doesn't come from a place of ego, it comes from a very confident place where he knows who he is and he cares very much for the other, for the partner, for the wife. And so he gives a whole lot of hecks, I cuss a lot so I should filter it, about her being on board with him. So it's a mutual exchange of, again, being heard, understood, and respected. There's not going to be this, okay, I get the final say. That's like a child, which unhealthy, but that is like a child-parent relationship to me.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice and all, but it doesn't actually answer the question. So I understand that you're saying there should be mutual respect. We should both feel heard. We should both discuss things, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, great. So you've discussed everything and, he still disagrees with you and thinks, no, you're incorrect, and I'm just really not willing to budge on this. So either we have one of two choices, right? Either the relationship is over because you won't budge, or he won't budge, or you won't concede, or what? What's the other option? You would have to concede to the authority, right? Like, I don't see any way around it.
I don't understand this though. I thought relationships were all about compromise.